I'm having a fantasy right now, and I don't want it to go away and get lost to the ether, because it's actually an idea that I'm really enjoying playing with. And so I was just thinking to myself, because I was like, yeah, I'd like to make a little bit of money when I'm back in Clayton, but I don't want to go through all that bull squish of applying for dishwashing jobs and trying to be a server, having to get a W-2, all that junk. I was like, man, that's going to take 2 weeks just to go through that stuff. And then what? I'm going to work for 2 weeks and then quit? That's so stupid. And so I was like, well, what would I like to do? And I was like, well, what I'd really like to do would be to give AI seminars. My thought was put an advertisement in the Clayton Tribune that I'm going to be giving a free, basic AI user lesson. What is AI? How do you use it? What can you do with it? Why is it a big deal? Just talking to people with a limited level of expertise, but enough knowledge to know that I could make it interesting and useful. AI's on everyone's mind, why shouldn't I cash in too? But I was imagining, I was like, okay, well, if I was going to do that, I would need to develop a curriculum. And so I was like, okay, well, where's a natural place to start? And also, how much do I even know about AI to be able to give a holistic explanation that would help with its actual use from a individual level? So I was like, okay, well, let's see. Because I started to, I was like, okay, well, I started going over the history that I know of. And that's when I was like, no. This fantasy has gone way too deep for me to not pull out my recorder. Because this could be good base. This could be good, source material. So basically, I'm just going to go ahead and pretend I'm at the front of a classroom and that there's at least one person in the audience. I thank them profusely. I make some kind of clever joke about how, it's funny that human interaction now requires talking about technology. Technology has to be involved for people to care these days. And here we are, two people who care enough about humanity to step outside of our own little echo chambers and learn a little bit about what's actually going on around us. Because I guess here we go. I'm starting. Depending on the view that you take on life, let's just provide it as my personal baseline to say human beings have been on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. Now, whether or not you agree with that statement, let's just pretend it's true. Let's forestall our sense of disbelief. What do they call that? I can't remember. Whatever Shakespeare said. Just pretend it's true, because this is the story that I'm going to tell. So basically, human beings, we exist on this planet for 100,000 years, right? During that, the bulk of our social evolution occurs, right? The very complex communicative strategies that human beings have with each other, they're all very much so ingrained within us over 10,000 generations. And this is also played into the actual biological hardware of our brains and our bodies, right? So nothing changes for, let's say, 99,800 years. And then 200 years ago, the Industrial Revolution occurs, right? And so the Industrial Revolution switches the human population from 98% agricultural societies to a complete flip where only 2% of humanity is, by the end of the Industrial Revolution, actually existing on farms. Most people have moved to cities, and cities are where industry lives, and industry and automation, that becomes what human labor is primarily concerned with, right? And so this whole period is occurring. Things are happening very quickly. We're going from a pre-electrical, pre-plumbing, pre-mass transportation, like we're going to a like level 1A of abundance, you know? It's like famine's not a thing, disease is being figured out, infrastructure is being established, like nature is finally, quote unquote, being tamed by human endeavor, right? And, you know, it's pretty modest gains at the beginning, you know? What do animals want? Well, shelter would be nice. And beyond that, what else? Well, dependable water would be nice. It'd be nice if we didn't get sick every time we had to drink some water, you know? And, you know, having enough meals, like that would be nice. You know, the population of humanity, like the lifespan doubles, you know, in this period of time, like from the 1800s, basically, you know, all the way until what? Let's say 1950, just for easy math. So, you know, we're basically creating a type of paradise that any creature on God's green earth would enjoy, right? Like the basics are now Maslow's lowest level of human needs has been pretty securely established, right? And so that takes us into this era of explosive growth, the technological age, you know, computers, all of these things that bring us kind of, roughly speaking, to where we are now. You know, progress has been, it's not a linear progression, you know, it's really exponential, and artificial intelligence is really the apex of, it's the tip of that exponential spear, you know, and that's because for the first time, you know, we have designed a machine that at least hypothetically, and again, this breaks no laws of physics to achieve this, strictly an engineering problem. Hypothetically, this machine can actually, once it reaches a certain state, create more and more perfect machines without human intervention or input. And in fact, at a certain point, which we are very rapidly approaching, human input actually becomes a liability. I was listening to an interview earlier, a recent interview with the CEO of OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT. Sam Altman is his name. And he was describing how he thinks, you know, certainly sometime this year with the release of the more recent, you know, GPT 5.5 and Anthropic's Claude Mythos, like these models are so powerful that Sam Altman is anticipating a major cybersecurity event soon. You know, it's arbitrary to put a number on it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, you know. And that's just primarily because, you know, I don't know what he means by that, but I certainly have noticed in my own usage of artificial intelligence models that each one that is released as a successor to the previous model, it becomes better at everything. And that's one of the primary things that I certainly want to point out in this course, which is that the true power of artificial intelligence and what it introduces to the human experience of tool usage is that it's sort of like an infinite Swiss Army knife. You really don't know the extent of its ability until you think of asking it. Like, that was always something for me personally using it, and I have my own testimony, I assure you. That was one of the most intriguing parts. It's like, well, you know, at a certain point historically, as someone who would just, you know, casually use the internet, like, there would be things that I knew I wouldn't be able to ask Google, you know. It's just like, the question was too complex or too nuanced, or, you know, my fear of not being clear enough would lead to a hyper-specific question prompt that probably wouldn't be interpretable by the algorithms because they're not flexible. Algorithms, traditional technology, everything that has existed prior to artificial intelligence has basically, for all intents and purposes, and again, this is a gross simplification, but hey, we're here for the basics, broad strokes. Everything that precedes AI was a static and relatively binary system that could break, right? Like, it didn't have any type of adaptability, and basically, you couldn't whittle your way down to a more nuanced answer to your question or suggested solution to a problem because it was static. So you look at something like ChatGPT, right? And so those letters, GPT, that stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, right? And so my understanding, any kind of GPT, which is what all of these models basically are, if you break down what this means, generative means obviously it can create things. Pre-trained, it references like that it has been trained on a certain selection of data. So, each model that comes out, they talk about like how many parameters it was trained on, right? So like, there's like this whole concept of scaling laws where you get a more capable model the larger you make the model's pre-trained data and its ability to, the pre-trained data. Like, if you increase those parameters, the model is better at like reasoning and providing answers and things like that. So pre-trained and then transformer, and I'd have to actually look this up, but I believe that the transformer is the basically the math behind the matrix actual predictions of how these things will basically what they're doing is that they have, let's say they've been trained on 4 trillion parameters of human data, or for that matter synthetic data, but that's more of an advanced topic. Let's say that they've been exposed to that number of data, right? That means that they have statistical correlations between the sequence of letters, which in this context are actually usually referred to as tokens, because this is also a bit advanced, but suffice it to say, in order to save space, these artificial intelligent models will look at like strings of words. Like, for instance, the word "the" is like a very common word, and you would take up 3 times as much space if you encoded the word "the" as 3 separate letters. Better to encode it as one specific discrete thing, especially because of how often the word "the" will appear within English human writing. So basically, the AI is looking at all of these trillions of examples of human text, right? And because it's able to see the sequence of patterns that occur within all of these written documents, and then it's able to start predicting, because of the large amount of training data that it has, what the next possible word would be in that sequence, and that's how it's able to talk to you, basically. It's really interesting. It certainly doesn't seem very likely that that's also how human cognition works, because it's hard to imagine a sense of awareness coming out of that kind of predictive statistical guessing. I mean, who knows? We don't even know how any of that stuff works. Anyway, let's just transformer. That's what it is, the GPT. So we have all of these things that make up a large language model. The training data, the actual algorithms that interpret it, and then the math that those algorithms use to predict the next sequence of words or tokens. And so, these things are trained in such a way that, like, there's not actually there's not a way to test its known limits. There are like a bunch of tests that these labs run. Like, there's this thing called Humanity's Last Exam, which they'll give. I don't even know if they're still doing it, because what these these labs, what they'll do is they'll take these AI benchmarks, right? And then they'll do what they call benchmaxing, where they actually train the model specifically on those tests. And so they'll kind of skew the model's ability to answer those kinds of questions and give it more weight than other things. But in any case, I'm getting way off the rails. What's the point? So the point is that AI actually provides us a unique opportunity in tool usage where effectively, you know, our tools now talk back to us using our own like framework of reality. And so the most interesting thing that I think I try to keep in mind with these as tools is like we're at a point now where it's almost like, it's almost more science fiction than it is seemingly fact. But like basically, this tool can almost do anything, you can at least ask it if it can do it. And there's a decent chance that it can. Any intellectual task, obviously you can't have ChatGPT rearrange your room in a feng shui kind of way yet. Once we have robots with ChatGPT integrated into their consciousness, you could do that. You could say, hey, I'm going to go out for a couple of hours because I don't work anymore, and I'm going to go to a cafe and just hang out and try to see if I can make a new friend. While I'm gone, I would like for you to rearrange my entire house so that every single element is arranged in place so that I have complete flow and like it's a feng shui type of thing. That would actually be fun, like especially if you're if you could use like holograms to like decorate your house in like a different, like what if you wanted it to be like a log cabin one day, you could like have like screens on your walls and it could look like there's like textured wood. Or if you wanted it to be like a European castle, or you could have like a theme, like make it like Hogwarts. Like let's pretend like I'm in the dormitory with Harry Potter. Like make this place feel like it's like, I don't know, a teenage like thing or whatever. It doesn't matter. Oh my God, I'm so off the map. So using AI, I think that the thing about it now is that you can actually start to train your own intuition to be like, when a problem occurs to you, let's call it a thinking task, start using AI to see if it could help you in some way. Maybe it can't do anything in particular, but even just talking it out with something that can talk back and also has like access to a lot of really good information about pretty much everything, like that is the power of the technology that we are now giving birth to. It's more of a growing of technology rather than like a manufacturing at this point. It's paradigm shifting, because regardless whether or not we've actually created something with sentience or consciousness, it is undeniable that we are now actually creating something that has, it's more alive than it's not. Like for the things that we consider important parts of, like, man, I feel like I've been here before. Just coming to this spot, I assume probably should look. I'm still out here walking. I think it was to the right though. Yes. We've given birth to something that is alive. Jurassic Park comes to mind. Life finds a way, so on and so forth, ad infinitum. Oh, I'd need to do a lot more work to make this into a actual focusable curriculum, but I can actually use AI to refine it. So this is actually really good, I bet. All right, love you, bye.